Look at all the assault. You got Marv on Kevin, Harry on Kevin, Kevin on Marv, Kevin on the pizza guy, the neighbor with the shovel.
We'll get that. So recently we polled the agents of Pemberton Real Estate about their favorite Christmas movie.
Gotta go with the classic, A Christmas Story.
By far, it's Die Hard. I think it's gotta be Elf.
One of the answers, which is particularly resonant for people of a certain generation, was Home Alone.
Mm-hmm. Without a doubt, Home Alone.
Turns out when you're a real estate lawyer, there's actually quite a lot of liability going on.
Rife with analyses.
So we present to you
my top 5 legal issues in Home Alone.
You guys give up, or you're thirsty for more?
And to start, I have to say we actually have to sit down and watch the whole movie, not just fast forward to the last 20, 30 minutes, which we all did as a kid with the old school VCR fast forward button.
Look, I was a master with that. But no, I kind of feel like I watch Home Alone every year because...
Yeah.
You know, the age we are.
Yeah, and now we have to, I have to ruin it for everybody as an attorney because I have to watch these things and say, look at all the assaults. We're not even going to get into it, but I mean, all of the assaults. You got Marv on Kevin, Harry on Kevin, Kevin on Marv, Kevin on the pizza guy, the neighbor with the shovel.
We'll get that.
We're not even going to get there with basically the crimes. It's just more of the real estate legal stuff.
Look, here we go. Start it. Let's take it away. Number 5. What have we got here?
Number 5 is the falling tree limb, which in reality really sets the whole plot into play. But because the falling tree limb severs the wires, there's no electricity. Everyone oversleeps. They also can't call. Well, here's the thing. They can't call Kevin from Paris, but at some point, Kevin can call the pizza. Or he gets the pizza delivered. It's not clear how and when the phone lines were reactivated or whatever. But anyway.
Yeah. Anyway. Don't talk to me.
That's a plot critique, not a legal critique. I'm sure John Hughes has an answer to that, but...
I mean, again, you know, when you're watching that as a kid, that doesn't occur to you.
No.
No one cares.
And where I think it works is actually like, how would Kevin call France? I don't think any kid would have the capacity to figure out how to call collect or whatever to another country.
Yeah, not back in the day.
In a world without cell phones. But
that maybe though that therein lies one of the tough parts for kids watching these days. They're like, why can't he just call his parents? No mobile phones, friends. Yeah, they didn't exist.
But what did happen is the falling tree limb. So when that tree limb and whatever winter storm or whatever reason it falls and crushes the power lines or severs the power lines. The liability question is, well, who is, as a homeowner, who's responsible for if that did cause additional damage? Now, number one, presumably that tree line was the subject to a utility easement called an in-gross utility easement. So the reality, it's probably the utility company's responsibility to trim that back.
Right.
Anyway, and it's their opportunity to do so. But as homeowners in general know, we should know that, you know, generally speaking, if the tree is alive and the limb is fine, if the tree limb falls, there's not a liability issue there, because that's just happens with plants. If your tree is growing over another person's property. However, if the tree limb is dead, or you can tell that it's obviously dead and becoming more of a liability because you can observe it and see that thing is dangerous, it should come down. If a homeowner does not then trim the tree back, they can be liable if it fell on someone and hurt them or something like that.
So we're saying Mr. McCallister really should have taken, you know, action, at least informing the local authority that...
Well, I don't know. I don't know where the tree is that fell. Right. It could have been the neighbors. It could have been the neighbors across the street. We don't really know, but fortunately it didn't fall on anyone. And also, if it was, let's say, intruding onto Mr. McCallister's property, he can, in many states, do what's called self-help and go trim it himself.
Right.
Because it's intruding upon his property line. However, you can't do that in a way that damages the tree permanently.
But also, if you do that and you take the power out, can you then be sued?
If you
do your own trimming and then you take the power out for the whole block and put yourself in danger and potentially your family, can you get in trouble?
I mean... To the extent that how much are you going to be sued for some people being without power for a little bit of time? Probably not. I think if you're acting reasonably, it's reasonable. It's probably That power outage thing is probably a question for next year if we end up reviewing another Christmas film, I believe, called Die Hard. But that's
a good. Yeah.
Let's just not even go there.
Stay tuned, folks. All right, here we go. Number 4, Kevin's own crime spree. We've got a lot of stuff going on. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts about Kevin's actions here as a lawyer and maybe as a father as well.
Yeah, I mean, everyone wants to just look at Marv and Harry as the criminals and the bad guys here, but let's break this down. Our young Kevin commits theft or in civil conversion when he steals Buzz's money. He probably doesn't commit trespass when he goes into Buzz's room because it's a shared space or something with a home, but he definitely commits theft with that toothbrush. And then flees the police in the process. We'll get into the use of the BB gun and everything else in terms of whether or not that was maybe like a self-defense or protecting his property. But he does definitely commit some form of a battery or assault with the BB gun shooting the criminal intruders. And he also commits an assault and battery by spider. Because even though the spider doesn't actually hurt, I believe it's Harry on his face. Yeah. The idea of what battery ultimately is an unwelcome, unwanted touching that, and by taking that spider and putting it on his face, don't do that.
That's
kids.
A no-no.
That's arguably again competing assaults and batteries because at the time that's happening, Harry is also grabbing onto the kid's leg and everything else. But again, we have to just sort of look at each individual action for what it is in the legal world, and sometimes you just got to take logic out of it in the legal analysis world.
Sure, because logic, who needs it?
Yeah, but no, lawyers definitely don't.
Well, this does take us on to point 3, though. You've got Castle Doctrine here, and so this relates to the shooting of the BBs.
Correct. Specifically, the use of firearms in one's home. And now, different states have different laws on this. So if you own a home in one state, whether or not your state has the Castle Doctrine in effect versus another, it can vary widely. But the general principle behind the Castle Doctrine is the idea that as a homeowner, as the king of your castle, you are entitled to this presumption that if you use a firearm to defend yourself against an intruder, certain jurisdictions would say you don't really have to justify that use of force because they are entering into your home, and so you can use force. And again, without having to get into this movie's based in Illinois, what version of Castle Doctrine is in the idea in Illinois in that time, but it becomes this idea that you're entitled to this heightened level of a presumption of innocence when you're using a firearm for self-protection in your home. However, in some jurisdictions, you still have a duty to retreat, so you're not supposed to just use the firearm just willy-nilly, And they have to be intruders. So when, for example, they're in the van by the street, you can't be picking them off, from the side, from the house, and when they're sitting on the sidewalk. But certainly when, Marv, I think, enters in through the doggy door and is trying to come in, Kevin exercises the right to use non-lethal force, right? Because he hits him with a BB gun. Separate that from in the movie where the angels or whatever, the guy in black and white, he says 1, 2, 10 and then starts shooting.
Angels with dirty faces.
Angels with dirty faces. I mean, that was a definite violation of the Castle Doctrine because, first of all, if he was going to give him 10 seconds to leave, he deprived him of that, but also that person was actually a guest. He welcomed him into his office. He wasn't an intruder at the time, initially, and so for him to then turn around and use the Tommy gun in that fashion was highly, highly inappropriate. And I would advise anyone against using that type of force in that context.
Okay, that's good advice. How about paint can to the face?
Well, that gets us into the next one because again, Castle Doctrine is kind of specific to using firearms. But there's a different principle too that Kevin really didn't employ there, which is something called trap guns or whatever, where people would. The Castle Doctrine does not extend to someone if they actually set up like a shotgun aimed at the front door if you walk in.
Right.
And, almost more like the flamethrower, right?
Yeah.
Like if that would not have been a protection under the Castle Doctrine if if there's a tripwire and a
So we think
shotgun.
Kevin's not really getting Castle Doctrine here.
Well, no, I think
Not for all of it.
not for all, but again, since it's in reality, since none of this was lethal force, I think he's probably not getting prosecuted for that. Correct.
All right.
Not setting aside the fact he's a minor and everything else.
Okay, moving on. We got trespass, burglary. We got Marvin Harry's plan to come back at 9 o'clock. Mm-hmm. Now, what is this?
This is a bar examiner's dream. And that's because, especially under the common law doctrine of burglary, which is a commonly tested component of the bar exam. The idea with burglary specifically is that it's breaking and entering into a home, into a dwelling, right, with the intent to commit a felony inside at night.
Okay.
And so burglary in its common law form has to occur in a house, and it has to occur at night. So if you break and enter in the daytime,
It's not burglary.
It's not burglary. It's still breaking and entering. It's still a felony. And if you broke into a business, it's not a burglary. To be a burglar in reality is going into someone else's home at night. Oh. And so, because burglary is a more heinous crime than its daytime equivalent, right?
Okay.
Which would just be a breaking and entering. Burglary becomes a more heavily punishable offense. So just strictly the idea that they would come back at night, Marv and Harry are setting themselves up for a heightened penalty in the courts.
Wow. Okay.
Had they broken and entered midday,
Right.
it wouldn't have been a burglary under the common law. It would have just been, obviously, a trespass and other things that are involved.
Sure.
But again, so for example, when they were at the neighbor's house, and I think Harry was wearing like the goggles on his head, and Marv or one of them was like spinning the whatever what is that thing called where you look through the eye thing? Kaleidoscope.
Yeah.
That wasn't a burglary because that was happening in the middle of the day.
So that's just breaking and entering.
That was still a crime, but it's not that specific crime. And so them coming back at night raises a very nuanced and totally lawyer nerdy concept of that becomes a burglary at that point in time.
I don't know, and I think it's fairly clear that Marv and Harry are not maybe making the best decisions. Even within the realm of trying to be good burglars.
Maybe the most heinous crime they committed is holding themselves out to be a licensed plumber in the van. Right? Yeah, it's okay plumbing, right? And whatever. Right. I don't think that they're licensed. I mean, I could be wrong, but again, like that is it in and of itself its own,
impersonating a police officer.
Impersonating a police officer, casing the joint. I mean, and the amount of property damage that Harry is committing with those clogging the sinks, and don't even get me started, right? I mean,
the Wet Bandits.
Yeah, Wet Bandits for sure.
Now we can tell every house that they've been to. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, here we go. Final one now. Premises liability, weaponizing. Well, you've got townhouse.
Yeah,
that's a town.
Well, yeah.
Probably 350K back in 1990, but
several mil
have
now.
Have you seen it inside now?
No,
it's just a white box. It's enough to make a millennial cry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I got to say another crime is that blue tile on the, on the countertop there. Oof, that one is, I almost think the McCallisters deserve it with that, interior design.
That was at the time.
So much wallpaper. It's just, I don't know.
It's coming back. Wallpaper.
Wallpaper's coming back, but.
No, tell me about it. How much liability are we really looking at?
Well, so the ironic thing why this is number one is, number one, because Kevin, is a minor. Anything that he does, his parents more or less are going to have civil liability for.
Right. Oh gosh. Yeah. Right.
And the irony here is that all the things that he does in the home, setting up these booby traps and everything else, these latent and concealed dangerous conditions, even if they're intended to, in a way, protect him. If Marv and Harry, even from the jail cell, got a lawyer together, they could seriously have a pretty ample set of cases for civil liability against the McCallister family. And that is because a homeowner is liable for latent or concealed dangerous conditions on their property. And so the idea of setting all of these booby traps or the amount of assaults, civil assaults that Kevin commits when he's throwing paint cans and different things at these poor gentlemen, for example, that intentional nail.
Yeah, the nail trap.
The nail trap. That is a just straight civil liability for a concealed dangerous condition. And so here's where I'm ruining this for everyone, folks. As you're looking at all these things, you're thinking about your kids. Well, what if my kid was in that situation?
Yeah. This is going to cost you
the lawsuit afterwards.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
You might as well just let them burgle you at this point, because really the lawsuit after the fact could even be worth more than all of the things they could have stolen in the first place.
That sounds like the good old U.S. justice system working at cross purposes. Mm-hmm. So which is worse? The worst of the lot. You could probably get away with the icy stairs. I didn't do the icy stairs. It's winter, you know? Yeah. But, okay,
it's important to know that's why you put that stuff out, especially as business owners, to make sure nobody slips and falls and falls down that stairs. That's a classic legal civil liability as a property owner.
Still getting sued for that.
Mm-hmm. But that's what property insurance is for. Potentially cover that.
Okay. But does property insurance cover red hot doorknobs?
I doubt it, because that was intentional. No, that wouldn't be covered because that was intentionally placed there. Right.
Spike track the same.
Spike track the same. The
flamethrower.
The flamethrower definitely. That is a dangerous latent defect. The glue chicken feathers. There's probably no harm there. Prank. Yeah, not a lot of harm there. I think when you break it all down to get into the mens rea of Kevin's mentality, he was definitely out for pain. And where that more than anything is where he took the micro machine and he lifted up the space shuttle so it was vertical, because he knew that was going to inflict more physical pain on the barefooted person than just a regular micro machine. So that his malicious intent was there, and that is potentially going to expose him for that latent dangerous condition, or maybe if not him, his poor parents, right?
Wow. There you go, folks. Kevin McCallister, not the freedom fighter that we as children held him out to be, actually just a colossal liability for his parents. So, let's do Home Alone 2 next. That's way worse.
Oh, boy. Yeah, there we go. Next year.